In the vast archives of forgotten history, hidden between reels of aging film and grainy military recordings, lies a story that most people have never truly seen. Not the polished version shown in movies, not the heroic scenes shaped by Hollywood, but raw moments captured by military cameras during one of the most brutal periods in human history. Preserved by the United States National Archives, these images reveal something deeper than victory or defeat. They reveal the silent struggle for survival on the beaches that became the front lines of World War II. At first glance, the coastline looks almost peaceful. Waves crash gently against the shore, wind moves through the grass, and distant towns rest quietly behind the sand. But beneath this calm surface was a reality filled with tension and fear. These beaches were not just beautiful landscapes, they were strategic gateways. Whoever controlled the coastline controlled the path forward, and both sides of the war understood that every grain of sand could decide the fate of entire nations. As the camera pans across coastal towns and defensive positions, we begin to see how ordinary life was transformed into preparation for conflict. Homes stood near sandbags and lookout posts. Civilians lived side by side with soldiers who scanned the horizon endlessly, waiting for ships that could appear at any moment. Fear wasn't always loud or explosive. Sometimes it was quiet, living in the minds of everyone who knew that war was approaching from across the sea. Concrete bunkers carved into cliffs revealed the scale of preparation. Camouflage artillery sat hidden, designed to strike unseen enemies before they ever reached land. The coastline itself became a weapon. Mines were buried beneath the sand, and defensive structures were built to turn open beaches into deadly traps. From above, the terrain may have looked empty, but every inch had been carefully prepared for a confrontation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ocean, soldiers prepared for something most had never experienced before. Young men marched across training grounds carrying heavy gear, their expressions a mix of determination and uncertainty. The footage shows long hours of preparation, rehearsals for amphibious landings, practice runs through shallow waters, and drills designed to simulate chaos. These were not cinematic heroes yet. They were ordinary individuals learning how to survive in a situation no training could fully prepare them for. Close-up shots reveal hands gripping rifles, boots sinking into wet sand and faces hardened by exhaustion. Behind the scenes, mechanics and engineers worked tirelessly assembling heavy equipment and artillery. Every detail mattered. Every delay could mean disaster. The preparation was relentless because everyone understood one truth. Once the landing began, there would be no turning back. Then comes the moment when training ends and reality begins. Landing craft cut through rough waves, packed tightly with soldiers who stared ahead toward an uncertain shore. The tension is visible even through the grainy footage. Some soldiers remained silent, others looked around nervously, and many simply focused on the horizon. The sound of the ocean mixed with distant explosions created a rhythm of fear and anticipation. As the boats reached shallow water, soldiers stepped into the surf and began moving toward land. The beach that once looked peaceful suddenly became a battlefield. Explosions erupted nearby. Smoke filled the air. Movement was fast, chaotic, and dangerous. The footage does not hide the truth. War was confusion, noise, and moments where survival depended on instinct. Some soldiers fell almost immediately, caught in the violence before they could find cover. Others pressed forward despite the chaos around them. Medical teams rushed to assist the wounded while commanders shouted orders that were often lost in the sound of gunfire. The sand itself seemed to shift under the weight of history as men struggled forward, driven by duty and the hope that their efforts would change the course of the war. Yet beyond the violence, the cameras also captured moments of humanity. Soldiers helping each other across rough terrain, sharing brief glances that communicated more than words ever could. These small moments remind us that behind every uniform was a person, someone with a family, a past, and dreams that extended far beyond the battlefield. High-ranking officers appear in later scenes, studying maps and discussing strategies that would influence future operations. Figures like General Douglas MacArthur appear not as distant legends, but as participants in a massive and complicated effort. Behind each decision were risks that could affect thousands of lives. Leadership in wartime was not just about planning victories. It was about facing uncertainty with incomplete information and enormous pressure. The footage also reveals scenes that many people never saw at the time. training exercises that were once classified, behind-the-scenes preparation, and moments that were considered too raw for public viewing. These recordings remind us that history is not only written in textbooks, it is preserved in fragments, waiting to be rediscovered decades later. As the battle moved forward, beaches that once echoed with explosions gradually returned to silence. Waves continued to crash against the shore, washing away footprints and traces of conflict. The transformation from chaos back to calm creates a haunting contrast. It forces us to reflect on how quickly places of violence can become places of peace, and how easily the memory of sacrifice can fade with time. Today, many of these beaches are known for tourism and relaxation. Families walk across the same sand where soldiers once fought desperately for survival. Children play near waters that once carried landing craft into battle. Without the context of history, it is easy to overlook the significance of these locations. But beneath the surface lies a past filled with courage, fear, and loss. The footage preserved in the National Archives is more than just a historical record. It is a reminder of the human cost of war. It shows us that victory is never simple, and that every strategic success comes with stories of individuals whose names may never appear in history books. Their experiences exist within these frames, captured in silent black and white images that continue to speak across generations. As we watch these scenes decades later, we are not just observing history. We are connecting with the reality of those who lived through it. Their struggles, their bravery, and their sacrifices remain part of a larger story that shaped the modern world. The beaches that once defined the front lines of conflict now serve as places of reflection, reminding us that peace is never guaranteed, and that history is filled with lessons waiting to be remembered. In the end, the battle for the beaches was not only a military operation. It was a test of resilience, unity, and human endurance. The soldiers who stepped into the surf carried more than weapons. They carried hope for a future beyond war. And so, as the waves continue to roll across the same shores today, they carry with them echoes of the past, echoes of footsteps, distant voices, and decisions that changed the course of history.